Hello, in this video lesson I'm going to show you how to make striking high contrast black and white images, and we're going to use this supplied image here to demonstrate the technique. Now, you won't get a high contrast shot by simply clicking on the black and white option in the basic tab. That just throws out all the color information and creates a black and white version of the shot, but you can see here from the histogram and with the naked eye that it's mostly shadows, lots of midtones, but virtually no highlight information. So it's fairly underexposed, it lacks contrast and it lacks impact. But we can adjust things to make it look much more effective. Let me quickly go down and show you the black and white section here, and you can see the black and white mix option has chosen different settings for different colors. Now, what you can do with these sliders here is you can fine tune things by dragging them. There's lots of red skin tones, for example, so you could lighten up the skin tone using this slider or darken it using this one. And you could also change the orange slider as well, because there's lots of oranges there. So that's one way to fine tune the contrast of your black and white shots by using these options. These sliders can be particularly useful if you're shooting a landscape with a blue sky. In the black and white version, you want the sky to be nice and dark to make the white clouds pop out. So all you would do is drag the blue slider to the left to darken the skies in your monochrome conversion. But let's go back to auto, and that will give us the settings that it's chosen automatically when we clicked on black and white. And what I'm going to do is show you how to adjust these sliders here and use the tone curve to create a striking high contrast monochrome version of our rather drab grayscale conversion. So we move on to the histogram here. You can see this section is covered by exposure. It's highlighting this part of the histogram graph. It's saying exposure down there, and therefore we're going to start with the exposure slider. So if we drag that to the right, you can see that the tones are now sliding more towards the right of the histogram, and we're getting a brighter looking shot. So if we go to about 0.95, I'm just going to type in that value to be a little bit more precise. You can see we've lightened things up more dramatically, and the histogram now stretches further across towards the highlight section of our graph. We can also boost contrast to make whites whiter and blacks blacker by dragging this slider to the right to a value of 35 or so. And we can boost the strength of the shadows by dragging this slider to the right to a value of 51. Let's claw back some of the white highlights by dragging this to the left to about minus 46 or so. And you can see the blacks are peaking really high at the far left here, so let's just lighten up some of the darkest pixels by dragging this slider to the right. A value of 51 should do the trick. So we've now teased out a little bit of shadow detail, and we've got much more contrast between the brightest and darkest parts of the picture. But to create a really high contrast print that emphasizes the shape and form of our subject, we're going to scroll down to the tone curve tab. And this enables us to make a quick contrast adjustment to make whiter whites and blacker blacks. And to do that, we simply go to the point curve here and choose a preset of either medium contrast. You can see it's dipping this section down into the shadows to darken them, and it's slightly lightening the highlights by pushing this curve up a little bit. But we can go to strong contrast, and then we've got brighter highlights. You can see it's pushing the highlight section up a little bit and dipping the shadows down even more to create a stronger contrast. And you can then fine-tune things using the black and white mix sliders. You could say, well, let's try and lighten up some of the lighter skin tones there just to brighten those up. And you could also brighten up some of the oranges as well, just to make those areas stand out more effectively against the dark black pixels in the picture. And now we have a much more striking high contrast monochrome version of our initially drab grayscale shot. I'm actually going to tap that back down a little bit there just to make it slightly more subtle. Those values should do the trick. So a really powerful way to lighten or darken tones depending on the colour is to use these sliders in the black and white panel here. So we've got some nice strong shadows, some nice bright highlights, but to just finish off I'm going to go up to the basic tab, and I'm going to boost the mid-tone contrast to create more impact in the mid-tone areas by dragging clarity to the right to 51, and that then gives us much more contrast, and it emphasises some of these grey mid-tones on the arms and just helps to emphasise the curves and contours of our model.